Ever wonder why clockwise is clockwise? Like, how did we all decide that that's the direction clocks should turn? Well, if you're an ancient human and you want to try dividing the day up into smaller bits, you're probably going to start with a proto-sundial. You're going to take a stick, jam it in the earth so it's straight up and down, and measure what happens to the shadow throughout the day. No matter where you are on the earth, the sun is always going to rise in the east, which means that in the morning, the shadow is going to point west. And the sun sets in the west, which means that in the afternoon, the shadow is going to point east. And if you're on the equator at noon, the sun is going to be directly overhead and cast no shadow. So throughout the day, the shadow is going to start by pointing west. It's going to shrink until noon, and then it's going to grow towards the east in the afternoon. But everywhere else on Earth, the sun is not going to be directly overhead. In the northern hemisphere, the sun always moves south through the sky. So in the morning, the shadow points west and then moves so that it is pointing north at noon and finally moves so that it is pointing east in the afternoon. So a clockwise direction. In the southern hemisphere, it's flipped. The sun is always going to be in the northern sky. So it begins with the shadow pointing west in the morning and then moves so it's pointing south at noon and then finally pointing east in the evening, or moving counterclockwise. What? Those are the same two options we started with. Why did we bother with all that shadow and sun stuff if we were just going to end up right back where we started? This is TikTok. Stop wasting my time. Well, here's a quirky geography fact for you. Most of the land on Earth is in the northern hemisphere, like 2/3 of it. A lot. In fact, the southern hemisphere is like 80% water. And in case you didn't notice, us humans really love land. We're real land animals. We build our cities on them. We farm on it. We love land. In fact, you're probably on land right now. Although shout out to anybody watching this on a boat or an airplane. And because we love land so much, that means that most people, like 87% of people alive today, live in the northern hemisphere. So, for all of history, for most people, the shadow cast by the sun is going to move from west to north to east. That's how we got used to watching it on sundials. So when we started building mechanical clocks, we just made them spinning in the same direction, a direction we now call clockwise. If the Earth were flipped on its head so that most of the land was in the southern hemisphere and most people were in the southern hemisphere, all of our clocks would run the other way.